Hey guys, and welcome to the STYRKA Podcast, your fact-based home for fitness, food, health, and nutritional coaching. This is episode 1. I'm Coach Mike, and I've spent the last decade coaching people in my fact-based approach to health, fitness, sleep, rest, recovery, and nutrition. In today's episode, we will talk about Mike Mentzer and some of the many fact-based ways he was wrong. Before we get on with the actual podcast, I have to mention that our first public STYRKA book is about to get published this month. It's called STYRKA Recipes and Food Plans, Volume 1. It's a plant-based food book with a complete 7-day food plan made up of fact-based, nutrition-rich, high-protein meals. Outside of the basic 7-day food plan, our first STYRKA book comes complete with swapping meals, so you can easily reiterate and reuse our food plan and meals for all of life. There are also several chapters talking about the symbiosis between good fact-based food choices, our fitness progression, health, body composition, hypertrophy, resistance training, aerobic exercise, and plant-based considerations for pregnant women, and many other things. So head on over to our website for more information about our book and pick it up when it's released. Now, to be fair, Mike Mentzer's ideas are several decades old by now, and science has advanced tremendously since he was active. So it is fair to assume that Mentzer himself would have course corrected too, as he got exposed to new, better scientific reasons. That's what fact-based coaches do. Unless they're so entrenched in their body work that they have lost their ability to adapt and go with the science. So his out-of-date ideas, that's not the problem. The ongoing Mike Mentzer problem, however, is that his old ideas remain a fairly popular influence for many gym goers even today, despite being at odds with current fitness science and trajectories we see from following more accurate and up-to-date science-based plans and coaching. As such, I feel that a more up-to-date fact-based dissection of these ideas and his decades-old coaching is very well deserved. And hopefully, this will lead to some highly beneficial adjustments for new and seasoned Mike Mentzer disciples. With that said, let's start with addressing one thing where I do not entirely agree. Some other objections to Mike Mentzer's exercise choices, and that's the minor topic of leg extension. There are some fact-based coaches out there that have very valid objections to the leg extension, such as Dr. Milo Wolf over on YouTube. And the basics of that objection is that the traditional way of doing leg extensions with a long contraction at the top and a very upright, almost 90 degrees seated position is far from ideal, because this removes the highly beneficial lengthen stretch under load more or less in its entirety. Not to mention that most people, traditionally speaking, don't do the lengthen stretch under load with the leg extension at all. It's my opinion that leg extensions remain a wonderful, safe, highly beneficial isolation exercise choice. And it's so easy to implement that, no matter your fitness level and your experience. Plus, we know that properly executed leg extensions yield really good results for the rectus femoris, while having an extremely low recovery price to pay. So, all good. So instead of avoiding leg extensions, or maybe replacing them with a reversed Nordic curl, do the leg extensions like this instead. Place the back support way back, so you can lean back much more than the traditional 90 degree with your upper body. Once you start repetition, contract explosively. Turn at the top without a lengthen squeeze. Lower the weight back down in a controlled and slow negative. But most importantly, at the bottom, stop just shy of the weights coming to a dead stop. hold and squeeze at a deep lengthened position while you slowly count to 3 or 4 with your count before you do the next repetition. Now we have a very effective leg extension with a low recovery need and a tremendous impact on the rectus femoris, making it an excellent sidekick to your main compound exercises for the lower body, such as squats, leg presses, and the Romanian deadlift. This is because leg extension, when you do it like this, will target the one area of the quadriceps where squats and leg presses don't do that great with. It's not that they don't work your muscles, the leg extension hit the quadriceps even better. The lower recovery need also means that leg extensions is a tremendous choice to implement on your other gym days throughout the week, giving you a second or even third leg session per week. So now that we have established that the modified leg extension is a superior choice for the rectus femoris, let's talk about muscle group frequency per week, because this is an area where Mike Mentzer is completely out of sync with modern, up-to-date fitness science. Milo talked about this too, and only going to the gym every 4th day, sure it works. You will still build strength and muscle mass. No one is saying that you can't have that approach. Something is better than nothing by a million times. So my critique is not that you can't grow muscles and strength with Mike Mentzer's old approach. You can. Anything we do in the gym beats doing nothing 100 times over. So, of course it works. If we compare it to doing nothing. Only going to the gym every 4th day and basically only doing 1 work set, maybe 2 work sets per week and muscle group, will produce an inferior muscle mass progression compared to hitting each muscle group with multiple working sets twice per week. So embrace that simple scientific fact. This simple scientific fact that training each muscle group in your body 1, 2, 3 times per week is nothing but beneficial. That for most people, 2 times per week is the optimal sweet spot with substantial benefits over time compared to only doing 1 session per week in muscle group. I said most people because some people train way harder and recover slower. It's individual too. But for most people, 2 times per week and muscle group provides better progression. 3 times per week might work a tiny bit better than 2 times per week for some people. And maybe not all muscle groups, but only some muscle groups, or perhaps even some exercises. But even then it might not be worth the extra time and effort and added recovery need to do 3 times instead of 2 times per week. Remember, we do not just exhaust the local muscles. It's not just the quads or the glutes or the back or the biceps you're training. We also exhaust our global systems in body and mind. So doing leg extensions 3 times per week, that's very safe for virtually anyone. Calf raises are the same, biceps exercises are the same because you exert the local muscle, but the global recovery need from these exercises are tiny compared to the squat or the leg press, the deadlift, big, grueling, or 0 or 1 row exercises. The global recovery need are way bigger in those exercises. So doing high effort sets with squats, leg presses, and deadlift variations, like the Romanian deadlift or heavy barbell rows 3 days per week, might add such a big global recovery need that it's just not worth it, even if you can create tiny few percent of additional progression in the intended muscle. I hope that you notice what I just said. But if not, let me quote myself. Doing high effort sets with squats, leg presses, deadlift variations like the Romanian deadlift or the heavy barbell row 3 days per week might add such a global recovery need that it's just not worth it. Yes, I'm specifically calling out effort as a crucial aspect here. For continued progression that's remotely close to being as good as it can for you, we all need sufficient enough effort. So effort is a big pillar in a good fact-based fitness plan. But when the effort per exercise and workout is good enough, and your workout volume per session a week is good enough, and we're talking about big enough exercises, it might render it a choice that will become too much if you add it to a second or third day per week, giving us this reality. Good workout plan might be to do squats and deadlifts, leg curls and leg extensions on day 1. And later in the week, perhaps you only add leg curls, leg extensions and or the Romanian deadlift. Or you skip the Romanian deadlift and you do a unilateral Romanian deadlift variant in order to create a slightly lower recovery need for the local muscles and your global system, while still getting better muscle activation and progression. And what I just said, that's the fact-based reality. And Mike Mentzer's approach of doing 1 or maybe 2 workout sets per week in a muscle group and then only going to the gym every 4th day, the progression rate will be left way behind. As you know, effort is not everything. And neither is frequency. We also have total volume per muscle group and week. So let's talk about that now. Because this is another area where Mike Mentzer was way off compared to what we know today. Once again, yes, if you're choosing between 0 training or doing 1 hard Mike Mentzer sets per week in muscle group, of course that's the superior choice. But, as I previously mentioned on many occasions over the years, slightly more is even better. And that's not opinion, it's a scientific fact. 2 days per week beats going 1 day per week to the gym. If you get your ass to the gym 3 days per week, that's even better. And if you hit 4 days per week in the gym, that's for almost every human out there as close to perfection as it gets. A tiny minority might even benefit from 5 or 6 days per week, but then they will also have to balance rest, sleep, recovery, and nutrition in an even better way and pay close attention to their global because volume per muscle group and week follows the same fact-based outcome. 1 set per week per muscle group beats doing 0 with an obscene margin, which is why doing something is such a huge benefit for fitness, health, and even body composition. But if you do 5 sets, that's even better than 1 set per week in muscle group. And once again, the margin compared to 1 set per week is going to be very noticeable. So we're already leaving Mike Mentzer's approach in the dust. 10 sets per week in muscle group will once again top doing 5 sets per week. And it doesn't stop there. If you go from 10 to anything between 10 and 20 sets per week in muscle group, we still see added progression. The improvement is at a diminishing rate, of course, but it is added progression. But it doesn't even stop there. Recent studies have made the case that for some muscle groups, or exercises at least, and perhaps not everyone, but some people, you can squeeze out increased progression with as much volume as 50 work sets per week and muscle group compared to doing 20. Of course, as I've already touched upon, more effort and more volume adds to our need for recovery, as well as the energy and time we have to spend on our fitness routines. So you will most likely never see a huge amount of people that have the time, the energy, the opportunity, desire, or willpower to churn out 50 sets per week and muscle group all year round. That's borderline insane amount of workout volume for strength training. So I do not see that as a feasible general coaching advice. That volume is insane, and the recovery need will be insane. But the facts are what they are. 20 sets per week in muscle group will walk right over the volume of Mike Mentzer's approach. So do 6 sets per week in muscle group, 10, 30, 40, and yes, 50 sets per week. So, next topic that's up for debate in our dissection of Mike Mentzer's approach versus current and much better fitness science is reps per set. So, please, Mike disciples, lower your injury risk by embracing this simple scientific fact. Your rep range per set doesn't even matter, as long as your per set effort is taken reasonably close to failure, anywhere between 5 to 30 reps per set. Sure, RER, which is reps in reserve, and the total amount of reps and per set effort add to our price of recovery. As such, on the plus side for Mike Mentzer, lower rep ranges do have a lower recovery need globally compared to doing higher reps with an equal RER and per set effort. That is true. But very high weights and a low rep per set that's hitting a low RER like 0 or 1 also increase the acute injury risk and the wear and tear over time compared to doing the same 0 to 1 or 1 to 2, 3 or 4 RER with an 8 to 15 REM. So let us be frank, nothing will demolish your health and your progression as much as being injured. Avoid injuries. So now that we understand that if our RER, which is really our effort, is equal, let's say it's an RER 1 or 2, or you can choose 3 or 4. As long as that's equal, it doesn't matter if you hit 8 reps or 15 reps or 25 reps. So basically just find the rep range per set that you feel at home with. Some people absolutely love the heavy low rep ranges. Others, however, will get such a workout joy and progression from squeezing out 15 to 20 reps with the same RER in their final work set for squats or leg press set. Which gives us the situation where the important takeaway is that if effort and RER are equal, the nutrition, the sleep and recovery are the same. All these rep ranges will provide nothing but great progression in strength and lean muscle mass. And that's what you want. But you also want to avoid injuries. And you want to avoid pain and stupid wear and tear. There are a few caveats, of course. Some exercises and muscle groups do very well with higher rep ranges. And if athletic capacity or sport-specific feats are a factor, that too plays an important role in deciding upon what is the best fitness plan for you. One example, squats and leg presses, for instance, can be insanely grueling to do high rep sets with, especially if you're trying to go close to failure. Think RER 0 to high rep sets, close to failure with squats and leg presses or deadlifts adds to a huge recovery need, locally in the muscle and globally too. You can absolutely fry yourself. That doesn't change that high rep leg presses, close to failure, seemed to lead to an even more impressive quadriceps progression compared to lower rep ranges. So while doing 14 to 20 reps close to failure in a final leg press or squat set, which is even worse, it's a nightmare for the rest of your workout. And in the case of the squat, can possibly flatline you the next day. Doing that high rep squat set close to failure carries with it a very nice progression in your athletic capacities. Of course, if pure 1 rep max strength is crucial because you're an athlete or strongman or whatever, in those 2 cases, squats, deadlifts, leg presses, high rep ranges might not be a needed priority for you. But for most people, they should ask themselves, do you really need to work on your 1 RM squat results? For most people, the answer is no, absolutely not. You want to get stronger, fitter, healthier. You want bigger muscles, you want increased work capacity, you want better fitness, athletic capacity, and you want better health, better body composition, strength, muscle mass, and overall capacity. And all those things benefit much more from a higher rep, high effort set to end your leg press or squat or deadlift session. Once again, not an opinion, just modern up-to-date fitness facts. There are other areas too where it's easy to find issues with Mentzer's ideas. He did some things quite right, and especially for his time, he did have a solid approach. But it's decades ago, and his major fatal flaw was his insistence that the only way to train was the way he trained, which is ridiculous. There are, as you can see right here in my article over at my website or in this podcast or in our app, so many ways to go about producing vastly better progression. And that's great. No matter who you are and no matter how your life puzzle looks like, you can craft the perfect food and fitness plan that fits your life. Which leads me to the next area where Mike was way off. Nutrition. High protein food plans are incredibly beneficial for better health, better recovery, better fitness progression. So there is no need to stunt your own progression by following Mike Mentzer's fairly low protein intake. Clients and long-time readers already know that, yes, you will still build strength and muscle mass even with just an RDA-based protein intake. RDA is recommended daily allowance. An RDA-based protein intake will be inferior to the progress you will get from your gym adventures with no other change than doubling up or even going higher relative to the RDA protein intake. And while I could say way more about Mike Mentzer, I think this makes for a pretty good first short introduction to the STYRKA podcast. And for people that aren't clients and have never read any of my articles, if you need help with your journeys through fitness and nutrition or health and life, head on over to our website to get coaching help from myself. At our website and our app, you can read articles like this podcast, but in written form. And you can get all year round unlimited coaching via our app. Okay, enjoy, have a great day, stay fit, train, eat, sleep, rest, recover in a fact-based way. See you next episode. Bye.